Hi, I'm Melissa, and this is The Book Break. And today I'm bringing to you a publisher and an author who's going to share some insight on how you can learn more about books and maybe even be an author yourself. Her name is Deborah Kevin. Come on in, Deborah.
Hi, Melissa. It's so nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. And I'm excited because for our viewers, Deborah and I actually met through a publishing program through Western Colorado University. And you were already a publisher, right?
I was a fledgling publisher, but I had helped people self-publish books for about 5 years before I decided that I wanted to do this for a living.
Yeah. And something that's really fun is Deborah and I, we got to work together on an anthology called Unmasked. And Deborah, why don't you go ahead and tell us more about this anthology? Because it's really cool. And this is coming out, guys, in a month, but you can pre-order it right now.
Absolutely. It was such a fun project because, we had two things that we were working on simultaneously, and this was our group project. And so last summer, we were tasked with coming up with a theme and a title for our book. We had to write the back cover copy. We had to write the copy for submissions. And then we had the fun of wading through all of the submissions. We had well over 500. And when you have 8 people, you're reading them and assessing them and doing the cage match, death match to make sure that your favorite stories get into the anthology. So we did everything on that book, as you know, including the cover design and marketing copy. So it was just such an amazing project.
Yeah, and it's really fun for readers because you guys are going to get an option to read science fiction and fantasy and superhero and thriller and dystopian and all kinds of stuff. I'm interested to know, Debbie, what is some of your favorite stories in the Unmasked anthology?
Well, I have a couple of favorites. One is one of the authors that I was very lucky to work with, and it is the next to the last story in the book. It's called Mope Not for the Mighty, and it's by Michael Nethercott. And it was just such a fun story to read. It's a superhero story with an unexpected twist. It was so well written, and it was such a pleasure not only to read, but then also work with the author, who was just thrilled to be in the anthology. And I think one of my other favorites is Framing Marta, which is by a Western Colorado publishing grad who was in the year before us. His name is James Romag, and I had a very early read of that story, and I love it. It's just it's fun and it's about witchcraft. So
yeah, I agree. Those ones were a couple of my favorites too, and I think those were some of the ones that none of us editors fought over. All of us were in agreement. No. Like, these ones are in.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, so those were some of them. And Pagulachi's Joke, I think that was another one of my favorites.
Yeah, I agree. And like you mentioned, part of this publishing program, and this is a master's program. So for any of you out there that are interested in publishing, again, this is through Western Colorado University, and you can get your master's degree in publishing. And it's the director of this program is Kevin J. Anderson. And so he's phenomenal. And so I just want to show the cover of this again, because I really love this book. And you can see we had a lot of fun with this cover and designing it. And Kevin was such a good influence in helping us with this. So another thing I wanted to talk about, Debbie, is a part of this program too was we each had to do a solo project where we had to publish a book different from this. Tell us about your solo project.
Yeah, so that was a great thing. We had to identify a book that was in the public domain, so a classic book, and then we had to reimagine it, and not in terms of necessarily editing, though for your project you certainly did a ton of lifting. But for this project, I had to look at something that, first of all, I was interested in, because as you know, we had to spend a lot of time proofing and editing and laying it out and reading it so many times. And so it had to be a story that I was going to be willing to invest the time in. And the second was I wanted it to be a little lesser known. My story was by Bram Stoker, and this is one of the very first mummy books that was ever written. What was interesting about this book to me was that there were two versions. There was the original 1903 version that had a pretty horrific ending, unsatisfying for those of us who like nice bows and happy endings. And I guess Bram Stoker himself felt that way. So just before he died, he rewrote the ending. And so the book that was published in 1912 has a different ending. And so this book actually has both, as well as a wonderful introduction by science fiction writer Rick Wilbur.
Yeah. So The Jewel of Seven Stars. And this book just recently came out, and so they can go to wordfirepress.com to get this book. It is also available on Amazon, but if you go to wordfirepress.com/GPCW, then you guys will be able to get this book and directly help support this program even more. So I highly encourage you guys to look at it. As you just saw, that has a beautiful cover, and you did a wonderful job laying it out too. And I kind of want to jump just a little bit now to your publishing company, Highlander Press. And you do a lot of really neat things with this. And in addition to being a publisher, you're an editor and writer too. Tell us a little bit more about what you do with Highlander Press.
Sure. So thank you for asking. Highlander Press is really a press that is very much designed to help authors who have a bigger mission, whether they're writing fiction or nonfiction. They have just this really big goal in creating a lasting legacy. And so one thing that I really wanted to take away from our publishing classes and also just my work in the author community is I wanted to create within my publishing house a community. And so I designed, not only do we work to publish the books on all the places that you can get books, but the thing that makes Highlander Press really unique is that we have a cohort. And our cohort is made up of authors who are being published in the same time period. And so they go through everything together. They have the ability to, struggle through the edits and the developmental piece, as well as getting ready to launch and to go through the mucky middle, I call it, but they don't do it alone. And so that has been the authors who've published with us. They say that that's their absolute favorite part. They call it a delighter, as far as something that they didn't know that they wanted, but they absolutely were so glad to be a part of it.
Yeah. And I think that is something that really all indie authors could benefit from. And you're new to it. And even if you're not new, that extra support is invaluable.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And then talk to us a little bit more about the write-in that you do through Zoom.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, one of the things that I feel on myself as a writer, but I hear time and time and time again, especially if someone is a parent or they have a full-time job or they have their own business, I don't have enough time to write. That's like the number one thing. And so I thought, well, I need time to write, so I'm going to put something on the calendar. I did it at the start of COVID with the intention of doing it once a month, and it became immediately weekly, and it's just continued for more than a year now. And we meet every Thursday from 9 a.m. to 1 Eastern, and we meet on Zoom. And no one has to register. I'm not adding anybody in my email list. I just want people to come and write, and it has just been an amazing container for getting things done in a very finite period of time.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and I would encourage any of you that are interested in learning more about that to go to Debbie's website, highlanderbooks.com. And then you're also on social media as both a writer and a publisher, right?
I am. I'm everywhere.
Awesome. Well, and we're showing some of those banners here. And then at the end of this interview, you'll be able to get all of those links. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It has been just a delight spending time with you.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, viewers, for staying with us. And I look forward to seeing you next time.